I pushed open my apartment door after the longest day of my life, and I heard something that made my blood run cold. Water running in my bathroom. I lived alone. The door was half open, steam pouring out, and someone was inside. What happened in the next 60 seconds would turn my entire world upside down. Let me be completely honest with you. This story sounds like something out of a movie, and if someone told me this before it happened, I would have laughed in their face. But this is real. This happened to me. And by the end of this, you'll understand why the craziest moments in life sometimes lead to the most beautiful outcomes. 2 years ago, I was 28 and completely lost when it came to relationships. I'd tried everything. Dating apps, blind dates set up by friends, even joined a book club, hoping to meet someone who liked the same stories I did. Nothing worked. Every connection felt forced. Every conversation felt scripted, and I was exhausted from pretending to be someone I thought people wanted me to be. I had this small one-bedroom apartment in the city. It wasn't much, but it was my space. No roommates to deal with, no one else's mess to clean up, just me. Most days I loved the peace and quiet, but some nights the silence was deafening. This particular Thursday evening, I was climbing the stairs after a 9-hour shift that felt like 9 years. My brain was foggy, my body was tired, and all I wanted was to crash on my couch. I unlocked what I thought was my door, stepped inside, and immediately felt something was off. The air was different, warmer, humid, and then I heard it clearly, the sound of running water coming from the bathroom. My mind went into panic mode. I lived alone. No one had my keys. Was someone robbing me? Was this a break-in? I looked around frantically for something to defend myself with, and grabbed the first thing I saw, which was a wooden spoon sitting on the kitchen counter. Not exactly a weapon, but it was all I had. My hands were shaking as I moved slowly toward the bathroom. The door was cracked open, and steam was rolling out like fog. Someone was definitely in there, and they were taking a shower like they owned the place. Just as I reached the door, the water stopped. Complete silence for a moment, and then I heard humming. A soft, gentle voice humming a melody I didn't recognize. It was a woman. My confusion doubled. Who breaks into an apartment just to take a shower? Before I could decide what to do next, the shower curtain suddenly pulled back. And there she stood, reaching for a towel hanging on the rack, completely unaware that someone was watching. She had long dark hair dripping wet, and the moment she turned and saw me, standing there with a wooden spoon, raised in the air, time seemed to freeze. We both screamed at the exact same time. She grabbed the towel and wrapped it around herself while stumbling backward. I dropped the spoon and it clattered on the tile floor. We stood there, both of us breathing hard, both of us terrified, neither of us understanding what was happening. She shouted first, her voice shaking, "Who are you? What are you doing in my apartment?" And I shot back equally confused, "Your apartment. This is my apartment. What are you doing here?" She stared at me like I was insane and said, "This is 4C. I just moved in yesterday." And that's when my entire world shifted. I looked down at the keys still in my hand. I looked back at the door, and then it hit me like a truck. I had climbed 1 floor too high. This wasn't my apartment. This was 5C. My apartment was directly below this one, and apparently, in this old building with its ancient locks and cheap renovations, my key had just opened her door. The realization must have shown on my face, because her expression changed from terrified to confused. I started apologizing immediately, words tumbling out of my mouth in a rush. I explained about living 1 floor down, about being exhausted from work, about not paying attention, about the key somehow working on her lock. She stood there, still clutching the towel, processing everything I was saying. And then something unexpected happened. She started laughing. Not a nervous laugh, but a real, genuine laugh that filled the entire bathroom. She said, "This is absolutely insane. I move into a new place, and on my 2nd day here, some guy walks in with a wooden spoon while I'm in the shower. You can't make this stuff up." Her laughter was contagious, and despite the absolute mortification I felt, I started laughing too. The tension broke, and suddenly the whole situation seemed absurd rather than scary. She told me her name was Sarah, and after I promised about 50 more times that this was a complete accident, she actually believed me. We both agreed this was a serious problem that needed to be fixed immediately. I offered to call our landlord right then and there, and she said we should probably both be present for that conversation. So we exchanged phone numbers. I left her apartment, went down to my actual apartment 1 floor below, and spent the next hour on the phone trying to explain to our landlord why our locks needed to be changed urgently. The next morning, we met at a coffee shop near our building to wait for the locksmith together. What I thought would be a quick, awkward meeting turned into a 3-hour conversation that I never wanted to end. We talked about everything. She told me about her new job in the city, about moving here alone and not knowing anyone. I told her about my work, about how I'd been struggling to meet genuine people. The more we talked, the more I realized how different this felt from every other interaction I'd had in the past 2 years. There was no pressure to impress anyone, no carefully crafted responses trying to sound interesting or witty. We were just two people who'd been thrown into the most bizarre situation, and somehow that gave us permission to be completely real with each other. Sarah had this way of listening that made you feel heard, not just nodding along while waiting for her turn to talk, but actually absorbing what you were saying and responding with thoughtful questions. When I mentioned feeling burned out from dating apps, she immediately understood. She'd been through the same thing in her last city. The endless swiping, the shallow conversations, the dates that felt more like interrogations than genuine connections. We discovered we both loved the same mystery novels, the kind with unexpected plot twists that keep you reading until 3 in the morning. We both pretended to be outdoorsy people, but rarely actually went hiking, because we'd rather stay in and watch documentaries about people who actually did outdoor adventures. We both got way too invested in true crime podcasts and would spend hours theorizing about unsolved cases. The locksmith came and went, but we stayed at that coffee shop talking until they started putting chairs up on tables. Sarah made me laugh in a way I hadn't laughed in months. There was this ease between us, this natural rhythm to our conversation that I'd never experienced with anyone from those dating apps. No awkward silences to fill, no forced topics to keep things moving. It just flowed. That coffee meeting led to lunch a few days later at this little Italian place she'd been wanting to try. Lunch led to a Saturday morning walk through the park, where we talked about our families, our dreams, the things we were afraid of. And before I knew what was happening, we were spending almost all our free time together. But here's what really struck me about the whole thing. For months, maybe even years, I had been trying so hard to make a connection happen. I'd been swiping through hundreds of profiles, messaging people I had nothing in common with, just because they seemed nice enough. Going on dates that felt like job interviews, where both people were lying on their resumes. I was forcing conversations, forcing chemistry, forcing myself to be interested in people I wasn't actually interested in. But with Sarah, nothing was forced. It just happened, naturally, effortlessly, and it happened because I made a mistake, because I was too tired to count floors correctly, because our building had old locks that probably should have been replaced decades ago. All these little random things that seemed like problems in the moment were actually the universe putting us in the same place at the same time in the most unexpected way possible. About 6 months after the shower incident, things between us had become serious. We'd gone from neighbors who met in the strangest way to people who couldn't imagine their days without each other. She would joke that she'd never felt more vulnerable than that first day, standing there in a towel facing a stranger with a wooden spoon. I would joke that I'd never felt more embarrassed in my entire life, realizing I'd just walked into the wrong apartment, like some kind of absent-minded fool. But we both agreed that somehow, in the most bizarre way possible, it was perfect. That moment of complete chaos and confusion had stripped away all the pretense that usually comes with meeting someone new. There were no carefully chosen outfits, no rehearsed conversation starters, no trying to present the best version of ourselves. We met at our most vulnerable, most human, most real. A year after we met, Sarah moved into my apartment, the real 4C this time. We spent weeks joking about how we needed to make absolutely sure it was the right floor. Our friends couldn't believe the story when we told them. Some thought we were making it up, that it was too perfect to be true, but we had the locksmith bill to prove it. And 3 weeks ago I asked her to marry me. I proposed in our bathroom because that's where our story really started, and it felt right to honor that moment. She said yes, by the way, and we both laughed until we cried because of how completely ridiculous and beautiful this whole journey has been. I'm telling you this story not because I think you should go around accidentally entering wrong apartments. Please don't do that. But I am saying that sometimes the best things in life happen when you stop trying to control everything. When you're just living your life, being yourself, and staying open to whatever unexpected moments come your way. We spend so much energy trying to find the right person, be in the right place, say the right things, but real connection doesn't follow a script. It's messy and surprising, and sometimes it starts with mistakes that turn into miracles. Sometimes it starts with you being exhausted and not paying attention and walking through the wrong door with a wooden spoon in your hand. If I had been more careful that day, if I had counted the floors correctly, if I had paid attention to which apartment I was entering, Sarah and I would have just been neighbors who maybe smiled at each other in passing but never really talked. We would have been two people living parallel lives, separated by a single floor, never knowing what we were missing. The mistake was the magic. The accident was the answer I'd been looking for all along. So if you're feeling frustrated right now about being single, or if you feel like nothing ever works out the way you plan, or if you're tired of trying so hard to make something happen, just remember this story. Sometimes love finds you when you're not even looking for it. Sometimes it walks through the wrong door holding a wooden spoon. Stay patient, stay open, and trust that your moment is coming.